My first advice to you is you don't worry. Don't worry so much. Because even the topper of the class is worried. Where will I get admission? Will I get it in this college, that college, or whatever? You are more worried, will I pass the next exam? So your worry is much more short-lived. The one who is topping the class is much more worried about, much longer term issues and all of that. And honestly speaking, I don't think you need to be worried. In my belief, in my experience, you don't choose professions. Many times professions choose you. And whichever profession chooses you, you will do well in that and you will be happy. And you will learn this a little late in life. I'm sharing this with you, and I'm sure a lot of people sitting in the front who are older and who have experienced life will tell you this, that happiness and material wealth or material possessions, they have no connection whatsoever. They have absolutely no connection. And many times the things that we seek to achieve, whether it's to achieve admission in a prestigious college or to get into something which is very difficult to get into, usually they are external scorecards which have been made by somebody else. They are not your scorecards. They are not what you want to do. So my first advice to you is you don't have to worry. Things will be fine. The second thing I want to share with you, and especially children who are going to go into a world now, because the world of today is actually very, very tough. It's unlike what most of the parents think, that the children have it easy. I think the children have it much more difficult today. One advice I'll give you is, whenever you're choosing a role model, choose your image of the role model, not the human being who is the role model. Let me give that to you with an example, and then you will understand why I'm saying this. Who is supposed to be the greatest teacher of them all according to the Indian mythology? Anybody? Dronacharya. Dronacharya is supposed to be the greatest teacher. Matter of fact, there is an award called the Dronacharya Award, which is given in sports to the greatest coach, to the teacher. Who was his greatest student? Ekalavya, not Arjun. Arjun was not his greatest student. The greatest student was Ekalavya. And how did Ekalavya learn from Dronacharya? He created a role model made of clay. And he watched Dronacharya, and he believed that the Dronacharya that he watched had the character of the clay model that he had built. And of course, he practiced a lot. If Arjun fired 100 arrows, he would fire 200. If Arjun practiced for 10 hours, he'd practice for 20 hours. But the real Dronacharya turned out to be a capitation fee teacher, right? For his own student, to make sure that his own student got ahead, he actually killed the sport. So many times, when you choose your role models, your human role models will let you down. And therefore, it is much better to create your own image of the role model and not be disillusioned whenever the real role model lets you down. My last advice to you as students is this, that you must know that all teachers who ever become teachers, they joined that profession because somewhere they were idealists. Sometimes that idealism gets covered with the daily routine of just trying to stay alive and survive and just do that 8-hour shift day after day after day. And sometimes it's the job of students to keep reminding the teachers that it is truly an it's an idealistic profession, because a teacher, we just had a young lad explain how even by touching 10 lives, you actually touched 1,500 lives. You can imagine what teachers do throughout their career. They actually make a lot of people achieve their potential, which otherwise they wouldn't have. And I can give you some examples of this, which I hopefully will be able to tell you one of two stories which will tell you that. For teachers, I have a couple of things that I wanted to share. I myself was an instructor in the army. My job was to train young officers who would then lead their own troops into battle. And it was a tough job, because unlike the private sector or the corporates or any other profession, we don't have the luxury in our game that if we make a mistake this quarter, we'll make up in the next quarter. It doesn't work like that. If we lose market share, we don't have the ability to make it in the next quarter. If we make a widow this quarter, she'll remain a widow for the rest of her life. If we make an orphan this quarter, that kid will remain an orphan for the rest of their life. So as an instructor, I had to be a little harsh, because we had to train our young officers to hold the lives of more than 100 souls in their hand. And I want to go back to my own days as a student in the academy. So when I passed out of the Indian Military Academy, I was 313th in merit out of a course of 400. So that takes a lot of hard work to come 300th. We are the ones who made the remaining 75% possible. So after my joining the unit, in the army we are sent for courses, and our first foundation course is called the Young Officers course. That's the first foundation course where your career is kind of decided after that. How you perform in that course kind of determines which path your career will take. Now for an officer who has been 313th in merit, even the commanding officer, even my boss didn't have that much of expectation. And in the army we have a grading system which is Alpha, Bravo and Charlie. Any army brats here will be able to tell you that. Alpha is 75% and above, Bravo is about 60% and above, anyone who is below 60% is considered to be Charlie. So in a course you'll normally have in a course of 100 you'll have maybe about 4 or 5 Alphas, you'll have about 20-30 Bravos and maybe about 40 to 50 Charlies. That's the way the course is sort of pans out. So when I was going for the course also, my CEO told me, try to get a Bravo. Kam se kam Bravo le lena. Don't come in bloody Charlie. That was the expectation that he had. And I had also decided that in life, okay, I'll try to be a Bravo so that I'm in the middle. If you're in the front, you have to do a lot of hard work. If you're in the back, you will get kicked a lot. So, somewhere in the beach mein ghode ko chalate raho, jang ke maidan mein. So you'll be fine. That was my sort of understanding. And so I'd set up my routine. I used to study for the first lecture in the class, 1 or 2 topics, and be the first one to answer a question so that the instructor has registered me, okay, this chap has answered, and then go off to sleep throughout the class. In the evening, do the bare minimum effort required to get to the next day, and that was my life during that course. And then I had an instructor called Sandeep Bajaj. He is a very senior officer now, but that time he was just a lieutenant. One day he just walked into my room, and he saw that I was getting ready to do my favorite evening pastime, which was going to the bar. So he asked me, where are you going? So I said, sir, I'm going to the library, to study and all. So he said, you're going to the bar, aren't you? I said, well, sir. He said, why don't you do one thing? My sense is you are heading for an Alpha. You have the potential to get an Alpha. Why don't you just give it a shot tonight, because tomorrow is a midterm exam. Just work on it tonight, and if it doesn't work out, you can always go back and make up, day after tomorrow for all your quota, you can make it up. I don't know whether he was telling me the truth or not. I still don't know till date. But that night, that one person telling me, I said, what the heck, let me just try to do it. And I put in maybe 2-3 hours of effort in that night. And the next day I performed well. I went on to become not only an Alpha in that course, but I got an instructor grading in that course. And from that day, my life changed completely. Because within 2 or 3 courses, I had started topping the courses, and by the 5th or the 6th course, if my name would be there on the list, people would now argue who will get the second prize, because the first one is gone. Now this didn't happen magically overnight, because I was quite happy to be a mediocre student. I was quite happy to get a Bravo and come back. That was my aspirational level. And if I had got a Bravo and come back, I would have thought, I'm okay, I've done well. But for this one person who came and found that spark, and I think that's what great teachers are supposed to do. Great teachers are supposed to treat every child in the class as if it is their own child. If it is your own child, you're not going to give up even if the child is a Bravo. You're not going to give up if the child is a Charlie. And I think the true hallmark of an instructor, which by the way in the armed forces is not given to anyone and everyone, you have to earn that badge that you wear on your shoulder. And truly great instructors seek the weak students, because it is only then that their capability comes out. If you take a 95 percentile child and make him 98, your value add is 3%. But if you take someone on whom the entire society has given up and said he is a Charlie or she is a Charlie, and make that person come into an Alpha, then you have earned this badge of an instructor. Then you can truly say that I am an Acharya. Otherwise, to my mind, this value add of 2 to 3% on somebody who's already performing very well does not qualify a person to call themselves a true teacher. These days, there is so much of uncertainty, there are so many choices, there's so much of pressure that actually children have a fairly tough time. So this belief that a lot of parents had that we had a tough time and they've got it easy just because there's some tools and technologies and phones and iPad doesn't make life easy. It actually makes it far more difficult. I'll tell you this story of a friend of mine who's both of them are exceedingly well. They're doing very well, and their son was about 15 years old. And one day I'd gone to their house for dinner, and I casually asked their son that, what's the mobile phone you have? I just wanted to check what instrument he had. And he said, I don't have a mobile phone. I said, you don't have a mobile phone at the age of 15? And both the parents immediately jumped in and they said that we have decided that we are not going to give him any distractions so that he can focus on his board exams. And after he does well in his board exams is when he'll get his first phone. I think we are doing great disservice to our children if we are going to create artificial conditions in which they succeed, because these artificial conditions won't exist in the real world. This boy will be competing with people who have been trained how to write an essay while they are listening to music, chatting with their friends, maybe even watching TV, with his other eye. And in that environment, he is training how to produce an essay. Now this child who has been told no noise, no disturbance, nothing and all of that is going to sit in a cubicle where there will be workers around him and he will not be able to produce anything unless he is given that sanitized environment. So many times when I see parents trying to protect their children by giving them artificial conditions that they can create inside their own homes, but which cannot be replicated outside in the real world, my sense is we are not strengthening our children, we are actually handicapping them. So it's very important that we actually start exposing our children to failures, to making mistakes, to most children who do exceedingly well in school find it very tough to encounter failure, because that is their first failure that they'll encounter, and because they have not been trained how to encounter failure, the crash will be very hard. And in some cases, we are aware, in some very sad cases, not being able to meet a certain expectation has resulted in the child actually thinking life is not worth living.